Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to look into UX and UI. And these are two terms that I see thrown around a lot, but very few people actually understand what they mean. Now, these two aspects have a pivotal role in shaping customer experiences in e-commerce stores. So that's why we want to go and tackle these. And if you're able to understand how to differentiate, how to analyze, how to enhance UX, UI, you can then create really good sites from the functionality and usability perspective, which allows you to then look into deeper these more challenging aspects of e-commerce, such as copywriting and all the different and more advanced CRO stuff. That said, this is by no means a non-advanced thing. It's just normally you'd have the basics right first before you can benefit from the more fancy stuff. So let's cover this. Join us as we explore these strategies, and we'll let you get a hold on your competition and leave your customers delighted. So let's jump into this. So first, UX and UI, making the difference here. So UX itself comes from the term user experience, and this is the overall experience users have while interacting with your store. So it's all this information architecture, user flows, etc. UI comes from user interface, and this is all those visual elements and designs that users interact with using your store. So they definitely have a connection, and they're often used together, UX, UI. And there you want to take care of both, of course, because otherwise the other one will be hindering the other one. You might be able to even think of examples where the UX is maximized, but the site looks terrible from the user interface perspective, or the other way around, where the user interface is pretty and fancy, but the site's user experience is terrible. So you do have those cases, and they are not that hard to find. So I look at it from this perspective. So we do need to have something that is visually appealing. At the same time, we want to have something that is intuitive to use. So the visually appealing UI part, intuitive to use UX part. And here you can see the split here. It is almost like two shapes of a brain, where you'll want to have the right and left sides working together. So for example, these would be typically things that you would go for a designer for. And these would be typically the things that you would perhaps go to a CRO specialist for. What we have found works best is to use the CRO expertise, for example, to do the wireframes and prototypes, so that the UX is covered, and then giving it to the UI designer, and then bouncing it back to the UX part to ensure that it is still aligned. This way we can get both. And this is the method that we use at Grow Gurus, which is my agency. You can learn more about us from growgurus.com, and perhaps you'd want to become a client to work on your UX and UI. Now, let's move on to some examples. And we're going to start from UI examples. Now, here are some, you might see these even on Shopify themes, and there you can then take action on fixing these right away after this video. Now, for example, here you have one that you have a primary blog article highlighted. If you don't highlight the other ones as well, it might look like these are out of stock or unavailable. That would be one example of a good UI interface where you don't have these inconsistencies that can lead people to think one way or another. Second example, very common with Shopify stores, is when you have multiple primary call to action buttons. I'm going to show a little bit more examples from this, but here you see this a lot, where you have these kinds of situations where all these different shopping buttons are competing with each other, and there you have to make a decision. Whereas often we see this performing way better, where you simply have one checkout or proceed to checkout button dominating that experience. And the idea is simply that now people know what they should do. And here on this example, most people would be logging in. Second most common, signing up. Third most common, forgot password. And here's another example of how that 1, 2, 3 layout is used by Dropbox. You have your primary call to action, secondary call to action, and then a third call to action. You could even look at this as the fourth one being call to action to scroll. So that way you can fit 3 of these in a nice UI perspective without overcrowding the site itself. Another one that we see a lot on stores, simply the icons tend to be random. And this might come from different designers. The stores may not have branding guidelines, these kinds of things. And then it just ends up being mentally taxing to use the store, where it wouldn't have to be that way. So having some kind of consistency with this makes it way more usable. And by the way, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, now would be a great time to do so. Obviously you like this kind of content, so this will be very useful for you going forward. We cover e-commerce optimization from all kinds of angles, not just UX UI, so there's plenty of material to come. And also I appreciate your support by liking the video, so that's always helpful for the algorithm. Let's move on. Next up, that is very common, is just misalignments. So you use center align at times, then use left align, where it would be easier for the eye and the user to just simply use left alignment text. Many Shopify themes have this correct by default, but then we see the themes going wrong when the developers start doing their work on it. Next up, it's very common as well to have low contrast items, where you have gray text on a white background or dark text on a dark background. And here you can't really identify what these items are. If you, for example, have a mobile phone with a lower contrast or brightness. That's one where oftentimes these might still look kinda okay for the merchant, but they won't be always so good for the client perspective. Very common with other platforms than Shopify is to get these fields wrong, where you have these random errors and it doesn't show you what the issue is. So their explanation would be very helpful. Next we have these interfaces where you have two things very close to each other, and it's hard to click on that with a thumb. So imagine having a big thumb and you can't really get it right. Lastly, you have images that don't have any relevancy to the product or the offer. They're just there. And this can be very confusing, because now you're looking at a certain thing, but then the imagery is something completely different. So not helpful at all from that perspective. And here you can see another one that is actually a good experience. So this is one where it's clear. You have the primary call to action button, secondary call to action button, clear drop downs here on the menu, clear call to action here to get started with something, clear login button. You have an idea of what the product is, this image, and this visualization is relevant. So this is about customer verification, and you currently have that on the screen. So that's a good example of a UI design. Next, we are going to look into UX without forgetting the UI elements as well, because you see these are so interconnected that we do need to cover both at the same time. Here's a couple of statistics to also cover the UI part a bit more in detail. So consumers largely determine the credibility of the business by its design, and the first impressions are design related. Now you could view this as design gets you an opportunity to pitch the customer, and the UX is what takes them all the way through the finish line. This is again one of those things where often it is a series of smaller yeses that will need to happen in order for the customer to finally buy. So here user experience is similarly tied to the performance of the store, where if the user experience sucks, people are just going to leave. The competition is too fierce now for you to get away with bad experience. And this is something that Shopify has also confirmed Google has confirmed it, even leading consulting. It's very undeniable from that perspective that these things do matter. Now, let's dive into how we might be able to understand the UX perspective and how we might be able to improve it. There's very many different ways, so I'll just want to keep it simple here, and you can start building upon this information. People might have different journeys. They might use the site differently in different devices, shopping different things in different situations. Often what we found is helpful is start mapping out and do 2 to 3 ideal customer profiles or customer profiles and 2 to 3 journeys of what those could be. So this helps us to empathize with this. And for example, if the purchase is something larger, you would have often a comparison exploration stage as well before you actually move ahead with the purchase. Contrast this to some impulse purchase. It can be very different from the buyer journey perspective. And here analytics is one of your best friends. Not the easiest thing to understand when it comes to these different user interactions with the different devices and different browsing patterns. But once you do, you have something that is very difficult for your competition go and understand better than you. Now, let's bridge this into its core simplicity. And it does come down to these kinds of empathy mapping. So here you are looking to see what the most common perceptions are from this. So what do they say? What do they see and hear? What do they do? What do they think and feel? And this is one where if you stop here and think through this, you will be able to gain a lot of wisdom from that alone. And this is actually something that I'd recommend as an experience and as an exercise. So go through these questions. You can take a screenshot if you want to. And from there, you will be able to better understand it. And this will not only help you with the user experience part in terms of your navigation, your filters, your copywriting. It will help you in UI parts as well. Imagery, the relevance of different elements and those kinds of things. What kind of emotional impact you want to have on the site. So very valuable questions, and often when we go deep into a client and client store at GrowGurus, what we do is we just try to ask the right questions. And once you have the perspective from hundreds of other cases, of course, and you are able to ask the right questions, enables you an opportunity to zoom out or zoom in, and from there you can make magic happen. So at the end, your empathy canvas might look a little bit like this. And this is actually a template on Miro that you can use if you prefer. You have these different ideas you can then go work on. If you see commonalities that aren't aligned with your current store, then that would be great. There's other ways to do this as well. This is one where often is the easiest to adopt first. Others that are popular are, for example, surveys, feedback on the site, post-purchase, midway on the site, like these pop-ups. And you, of course, have user recordings, heat maps as well to understand that. First of all, we like to start from the qualitative part because it helps us to not draw the wrong conclusions when it comes to the data itself. So understanding this deeply, very, very valuable, will save you so many headaches. Now, moving on from the customer journey map, you have another example here. Let's look at the implications of all this fancy stuff. So first of all, you have your customer, and you might have it mapped out something like this. There's a quick bio, understanding of the personality, what are their goals, needs, frustrations, fears, and sort of favorite brands, or what they're looking to do with this. Often it helps to also summarize it in a quote as well. Now, depending on the store size, this might be a little bit of an overkill. If you're not making any conversions at all, don't do this. But if you're looking to take the say 7 or 8 figure store to the next level, this is a great exercise. Now, when you understand this and you understand the different buyer groups, you can then make decisions based on the information. So for example, you have a menu structure here where now you can understand what order these should be. Of course, you can have your data as well inform you, but this might be one where we might see that people are undervaluing the shipping information, for example. Whereas that's something that is very commonly going to be a question that comes in the buying purchase. Now, with this architecture covered, let's look into very tangible examples. I'll pick a few of e-commerce stores that I see getting it wrong, and we'll also have a couple that get it right. So first of all is cramming way too many things into a page, where you have something like this, where suddenly you just try to cover everything in one screen. You have menus everywhere, clickable elements, etc. And this can then start looking a bit like this, where you have menus, you have different categories, etc. So everything's screaming at you, just click here please, and there you don't really have anywhere to focus on. Here, if you were to look at this from the eye perspective, they would be all over. This one is actually ignoring this crucial principle of UX UI design, where you'd have a visual hierarchy. And very much the same idea here with not cramming everything into one screen. Next we have the menus. So often, just like everything's on a single screen, you might have menus that are very crammed as well. And there, the idea is that instead of doing it like this, you can have main categories that break into subcategories on the collection page. And that way you can have this clarity achieved even on mobile. Next up, we have people being confused. So for example, not having breadcrumbs here and not having clarity on where they are actually, and having that easy back button on a product page from them to continue on to either the front page or the collection. So there's those navigational paths that often get ignored. And if people are, for example, on mobile, they can't open things up in tabs so well. So these kinds of navigational elements really boost the user experience. Next up, we have either text that is too wide, where it's easy to miss the line that you're reading on. You try to continue on the next line, but you continue from the same line or the previous line even, because it's just too wide. Their reading principle is that you'd have to get this a little bit narrower so that you can read it better. Very common as well, especially if you think of ultra-wide monitors and how that can affect the experience. Sometimes we see double popping the pop-ups. So there might be a chat, there might be a pop-up, there might be some kind of help thing, there might be even the third, fourth thing popping up at the same time. And there, it's just overwhelming. You would have to get rid of the first one to get the second one, and that is a tough one. Next up, we have forms. So it's just very easy to get this crammed. You want to cram everything, but you'd want to have that follow a logical pattern. So it's just like start from the top, finish at the bottom, instead of going all over. Then making the purpose of each button clear. So often you might have things like buttons are alternating here, where instead you want to have that commonality and clarity. Okay, a couple of quick examples to wrap up the video. Some of my favorite UX experiences from the internet. So here we see a lot of these splits here, where they are clearly looking for one or the other. You see this a lot with fashion, where it's shop men, shop women, and that kind of split. But here you have the same kind of categories as you saw on the other side, but they are mapped out in a few items or few options instead of it having all these options listed in a very overwhelming manner. So that's the first view on this. And then here's another example with the split banner, and there you have, based on the activity, you can actually select this. So here, one thing that could make it better is just add everyday button here, or activity button. That's small things that can help in this. And here, for example, you see that all the shopping menu buttons are here, and then all the other buttons makes it clear on this setup. So that's the basics of UX UI and a little bit of an introduction on that. I would like to stress that this is a deep rabbit hole. It's not something that can be covered in just a 20-minute video, and there's a lot more to it than this. So that it helps to understand that this is what UX UI is about, and if you follow the best practices, you'd be typically avoiding the biggest mistakes when it comes to UX UI. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video for more insightful content, and feel free to leave any comments on the question description thing below, comments. And then just wish you happy designing with the understanding of the connection between UI, UX, and how impactful it can be to customer experience. And this way you can then create the most visually appealing, well-functioning, user-friendly sites, both drive conversion satisfaction and also customer loyalty. So thank you for watching and see you on the next one. Cheers!